Hi there, welcome back. We are looking at Jonah 1:16 today, and it says this: Now the sailors began to fear Yahweh with a great fear. As soon as possible, they sacrificed sacrifices and vowed vows to Yahweh. So once again, we're in Jonah. And once again, we will see how the author of Jonah cleverly used words to get his point across. Now, the book of Proverbs starts by telling us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. To have true wisdom, we need to understand who God is and who we are correctly, and the vast difference between us. Yet, in this first chapter of Jonah, we are not told that the Jewish prophet is the one who fears Yahweh, but the pagan sailors. Now, the sailors don't fear God right away. What happens is that the author shows how their understanding of Yahweh slowly grows throughout their plight on the sea. In verse 5, we're told the sailors began to fear, right? They're caught in this storm, this divine storm. They know that there's more going on than just some bad wind. And they begin to wonder, who's causing all of this? And after hurling what they could overboard and desperately pleading with any divine being that might be listening, they decide to let the gods reveal what is going on by casting lots, which of course points to Jonah as the source of their trouble. And Jonah tells them that the God he is running from happens to control both the land and the sea, something that, if he honestly believed, makes his whole boat voyage seem like a pretty bad idea. And this leads to verse 10, and the sailors begin to fear a great fear. And like when the fear started, they try their best to figure out how to survive. But this time, Jonah tells them that they gotta chuck him into the sea instead of chucking cargo. Now, despite all the chaos going around them, these sailors first decide that straight up murdering someone is not what they want to do. But after realizing there are no other options, they ask God not to hold it against them or not to hold them accountable because they don't want to kill this dude. But it seems he's kind of insisting on it. And once they chuck Jonah overboard, the storm stops and the sea becomes silent. And then we read what we read earlier. So the sailors started to fear when the storm came. And their fear grew when they found out what Jonah did. And now that they've been saved, they still fear, but it's turned more into awe for the God that has saved them. Of course, what makes this transformation stand out is when you put the growing fear of the sailors and the acknowledgement of Yahweh as the God over all things with the blatant self-righteousness of Jonah. Because while the sailors started to fear more and more, Jonah never seemed to fear at all. Because while the sailors were chucking cargo and crying out to their gods, Jonah was asleep. And when the sailors figured out that it was because of Jonah that the storm was happening, he told them that he feared the God who controlled the land and the seas. And when the sailors desperately sought a way to save everyone on board, Jonah just kind of casually told them to throw him overboard. Jonah had such a low fear of God that he could not recognize his position and thought he could run away from the God of all creation. Today, as Christians, we can become like Jonah in that our fear of God is too low. You could argue that maybe it's just a sign of being confident in salvation, or that it is that we just trust in God. But often it means we have become so comfortable that we forgot why we needed to be saved in the first place. We elevate the view of ourselves, which causes us to look down on everyone else. Instead, we need to make sure we view God correctly. We need to join the sailors in having a great fear. Because remember, only a proper view of God will lead us to be wise. Jonah's lack of fear led him to make unwise decisions. When we make decisions today, how much does our fear of God influence our conclusions? Do we recognize Yahweh's sovereignty like the sailors? Or do we only say we fear him like Jonah? Thanks again for watching. If this is a blessing to you, please share it. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button down below. If you want to listen to this or read this in a blog form, those links are also down in the description. I pray that you guys all have a blessed week, and I'll see you next time.